So a bit like a Dublin bus been missing for ages and then three turn up at once. Another video from me. Andy Farrell has named his 37-man squad for this year's Guinness Six Nations. And while there wasn't as many new faces as we would have expected, there are still a few talking points. One being the big injuries. Injury concerns seem to dominate the headlines following the announcement ahead of what could be a brutal opening fixture for Ireland in Paris against France. One consistent was Caelan Doris. He leads the side again for a second campaign. So let's have a look at some of the key selections, those two uncapped players, the growing injury list, and Ireland's fixtures for this year's Six Nations. This Six Nations feels particularly important for Ireland. We're 20 months and 1 week out from that 2027 World Cup. It was a disappointing tournament last year. They finished third with 19 points, 4 wins and 1 loss to France at home. And then it was a considerably underwhelming autumn. So this feels like a real turning point for Andy Farrell's Ireland team. And while the squad that's named today, it still has signs of a group that Farrell clearly trusts, that he believes can compete in the here and now, which may be a prudent strategy given the opening game away to France. Arguably the toughest test for Ireland, the Six Nations, at least on paper. There are some signs that Andy Farrell's building for the future and that 2027 World Cup. However, it's more evident in that Ireland A squad that will face England after that France match than in the actual Six Nations squad that was announced today. So let's get into the 37 players selected. So the forwards, Tom Ahern, Finlay Bealham, Tadhg Byrne, Jack Boyle, Thomas Clarkson, Jack Conan, Caelan Doris, the uncapped Edwin Adogbo, Tadhg Furlong, Ronan Kelleher, Jeremy Lockman, Joe McCarthy, Michael Milne, Tom O'Toole, Cian Prendergast, James Ryan, Dan Sheehan, Tom Stewart, Nick Timoney and Josh van der Fleer. And then the 17 backs, Bundy Aki, Robert Balakoon, Harry Byrne, Craig Casey, Jack Crowley, Nathan Doak, Tom Farrell, Kieran Frawley, Jemison Gibson Park, Hugo Keenan, James Lowe, Stuart McCluskey, Tommy O'Brien, Jamie Osborne, Sam Prendergast, Gary Ringrose, and Jacob Stockdale. So that selection featured 19 Leinster players, 8 Munster players, 3 Connacht players, and 7 Ulster players. So in terms of a breakdown, percentage-wise, 51% Leinster, 22% Munster, 19% Ulster, and 8% Connacht. Ulster definitely have the right to feel a bit hard done by that selection, given that they're third in the URC, above Leinster in 5th place and Munster in 6th. They might have been expecting to have a few more players in the squad. Ian Henderson actually spoke about the lack of Ulster representation in the Ireland squad. He was quoted in today's Irish Independent. He said, "One thing that has actually frustrated me over the last few seasons is that we're not giving those young guys that we're now seeing the opportunity to put their hand up." It was also echoed by Ulster's general manager, former Ireland captain and Ulster rugby legend Rory Best. He was also quoted in the Irish Independent and he said, "We are under no illusions about where we are, especially when set alongside Leinster. Our big ambition is to be pushing our young players forward. And no one would take more satisfaction if we got half a dozen or more of our players going to the World Cup next year. I want our players to come here to grow and become internationals." So while they may be Ireland's most improved province domestically, it doesn't seem to reflect that in the selection made by Andy Farrell today. However, there is Ulster representation in the new blood for Ireland. The 2 uncapped players, one of them being Nathan Doak, he's Ulster scrum half, a player that a lot of fans have been calling for to play for Ireland. Doak at Ulster has really put his hands up for selection. He has good game management. He's confident under pressure. So just looking at his stats in the URC so far this season, points scored, he scored 65 points, 1 try, 5 assists, 10 clean breaks, 34 carries, and then kicking, he scored 6 penalties. He scored 21 conversions and his kick success rate is at 79%. And then the other new cap is Munster's second row, Edmund Adogbo. He finally gets his chance. He was previously included in that autumn international squad, but he got ruled out through injury. Just looking at his Munster record, the 23-year-old has played 24 games for Munster, scoring 30 points. He made his senior debut against Dragons at Rodney Parade in September 2022. And standing at 6'5" and weighing 127 kilos, he really brings size, bulk, as well as athleticism to that second row. And it's something that Ireland will be in need of for that clash with France. He's also gone really well for Munster this season, and he was really the shining light in that loss to Cast. There's also two players that will be joining up with the camp. That's Dara Murray of Connacht and Bryn Ward of Ulster. Both will join up with the squad in Portugal, and then they will link back up with the Ireland A squad after. And that Ireland 15 A squad is as follows: Shane Daly, Zach Ward, Joshua Kenny, James Hume, Cottle Ford, Jude Postlethwaite, Dan Kelly, Fintan Gunn, Ben Murphy, Jack Murphy, Dermot Barron, Stephen Smith, Gus McCarthy, Billy Bohan, Sam Crean, Ollie Yeager, Scott Wilson, Sam Illo, Dara Murray, Charlie Irvine, Dermot Mangan, Brian Gleeson, Paul Boyle, Max Deegan, who captains the squad, Sean Jansen, and Bryn Ward. And that Ireland 15 will take on England A on Friday, the 6th of February, kick-off 7:15 p.m. at Thomond Park. That's the day after that France match. So we might actually see some of the fringe players from the 37 players that were announced today actually linking up with that squad as well. That game really feels like an audition for some of these players, maybe a way for Farrell and co to see what players that have been around the block like Max Deegan, Ollie Yeager, Gus McCarthy can bring to this camp. Also, the untested younger players like JJ Kenny, Dermot Mangan, Jude Postlethwaite, Fintan Gunn, and Ben Murphy, just to name a few, how they adapt to training and playing at a higher level. Because we've heard previously Andy Farrell speaking about players' attitude in camp and what they bring to camp. Like if you look at Tom Farrell, he was called up last November, and Andy Farrell had spoke about how he had linked up with the squad before, but it was something that Farrell had seen this time round that had impressed him, and he again features in the squad name today. So while there may be some disappointment, there's still massive opportunities for these players to really put themselves up for contention. As we know, the Six Nations, it's a long tournament, it's 7 weeks, 5 games. A lot can happen personnel wise, maybe even before the tournament starts. As Ireland are heading into this Six Nations with a significant injury list, and maybe some walking wounded who were actually named in today's squad. Currently unavailable and injured are Robbie Henshaw, Calvin Nash, Jimmy O'Brien, Andrew Porter, and Cormac Izajuku. And then the players who've been ruled out entirely: Ryan Bird, Shane Bolton, Matt Hansen, Jordan Larmer, and Paddy McCarthy. So there's a lot of experience missing, especially across the back line and at loose head. Also, it seems that the injury concerns might not stop there. As Rory O'Connor pointed out in his squad breakdown, there's 4 players named at tight head. So it seems that maybe they're hedging their bets on the fitness of the likes of Tyke Furlong and Finlay Bealham. Stuart Lancaster had said about Finlay Bealham's return from injury yesterday, "I don't think it's a million miles away," but he was a bit concerned about his lack of game time. So looking ahead to those fixtures, so Ireland's Six Nations campaign starts with the ultimate challenge on the 5th of February, away to France, opening night of the championship. Also the first ever Thursday night fixture for the championship at Stade de France. Fabien Galtier was absolutely cutthroat when he named his squad, axing players like Penno, Aldrit, and Fiku. A lot of teams will be crying out for players of their calibre. Also, Anton Dupont has returned from injury, so it's going to be a hell of a challenge for Ireland. Next up is Italy at home on the 14th of February, back to Dublin. Maybe a chance for Andy Farrell to rotate the different game against Italy. We know they can attack, and they've definitely caught Ireland out on the hop before. After that, it's England away on the 21st of February, Twickenham. There's the knowns. We know it's going to be physical, we know it's going to be emotional, and then there are the unknowns. There's an unpredictable element to this fixture. And there's been indications that Steve Borthwick's side has started to hit a run of form. There's a freshness, there's an excitement about the team, and there's still some experience there. Ellis Genge, George Ford, Tom Curry, and of course Mario Itoje, who captained that line side to that series win. There's also a few breakout stars. Henry Pollock, of course, Finn Smith as well. He could be ruled out with a calf injury. And then there's some maybe outliers, some bolters, perhaps maybe Archie McParland and Joe Batley coming through. Next up, it's Wales at home at the Aviva on March 6th. That's a Friday night fixture, which is a bit unusual, but not unknown for the Six Nations. This might be one to target for Ireland. Wales have had some tough days recently, especially in the Six Nations. They actually haven't won a Six Nations fixture since round four of the 2023 Six Nations, and that was a 29-12 away win against Italy. But maybe those struggles on the home front, that potential buyout of Ospreys, it might galvanise Wales and the players to produce something at this year's tournament. And finally, Super Saturday, which is March 15th. Scotland at the Aviva, the old foes. It's always a spicy encounter. I was recently at a talk with Peter O'Matney, and he said one of the best compliments he ever got in his career was being booed off against Scotland. However, Ireland, they should have the crowd on their side this year with the fixture being at home. Ireland has dominated this particular tie since 2017, but Scotland really do love to put it up to Ireland. So you can't rule out Gregor Townsend's side, led by captain Sione Tuipulotu. So before it all kicks off, the team will assemble in Dublin before heading over to Portugal for that annual warm weather camp. So that's Ireland's 2026 Six Nations squad. So some new opportunities, some injury challenges for Andy Farrell, and maybe some elements of the unknown still. Again, that number 10 debate still looms for the weeks ahead. I was actually listening to the Indo Sports podcast from yesterday, and Jonathan Bradley and Luke Fitzgerald, they were kind of talking about how they felt that the pecking order for the number 10 jersey was in Andy Farrell's thinking. And their order was Prendergast, Byrne and Crowley, with them theorising that Sam Prendergast could start for that France match. What are your thoughts on that? As I pointed out in my last video, looking at their stats, there's no real clear picture of who's a better player than who. It's more that they're three great players and they all offer something completely different. I think Crowley, he brings a more physical edge. He's probably better in defence. Harry Byrne is a more cooler, calmer, maybe more reliable option. And then Sam Prendergast, that creative spark, being able to produce something from nothing, but maybe not being the final product defensive wise. Gerry Thornley from the Irish Times, he called him a generational talent attack wise, speaking on the What the Ruck podcast. He said, what he does with his hands and feet is magical. You can't coach that. Lucky for us, we get to enjoy all three, and it's up to Andy Farrell to analyse them and settle on what he wants to see in a number 10 and what he wants to see in the squad. And we should have a clearer picture on what that is in a few weeks' time. So what do you think? Do you think this Ireland squad can hit the ground running? They really need to against France. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Who do you think should start at 10? Who else do you think should be in that starting lineup? Which players do you think missed out in today's announcement? And what are your early predictions for this year's Six Nations? Thanks as ever for watching. Your support has been really great and it really means a lot to me. I love this. I love being able to sit down here and talk about rugby. I'll also add the links to the podcasts and articles I've mentioned below. So please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.